Okay, folks, let's get into it. The next full moon happening on Saturday, April 12th at 8:22 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the halfway point or the fullest part of the lunar cycle that was started with the new moon solar eclipse a couple of weeks ago. And, following the trend, there's a lot going on. This is a pretty catalytic lunar event. There's a lot happening in the chart that is favorable, but rather intense as well. And remember, tensity is not a bad thing, though, so no need to be afraid. In fact, that is the opposite of what you want to be doing at this point in time, because the essence of what's going on here is releasing your fears and the need to micromanage and embracing the faith and trust in the unknown, the feminine, expansive energy of Pisces. And so this is the axis that the moon is happening on here. Okay, so we've got always with the full moon, the moon is opposing the sun in Pisces opposing the moon in Virgo. This is the second full moon that we've had on this axis. So the full moon lunar eclipse that was a month ago was on the same axis, but earlier in the degrees. So now we're further along the higher degrees of both Pisces and Virgo. So it's basically the second octave of that theme, okay? And if you've been following my content for a while, especially on TikTok, there has been a lot of really interesting correlations or energies from the Schumann resonance along with these aspects. And it's really all pointing towards our ability to step into a new paradigm of more heart-centered, spacious, intuitive, magical existence and away from the old paradigm of hustle culture, grind, using your mind, materialism, all of the shadow aspects of Virgo, essentially. Okay, so let's get into it. There's a lot happening here, and I'm going to break it down as far as the specific aspects. Okay, so the first thing I want to look at is right here. Oh, what is going on there? Right here. Okay, the party in Pisces. We've got a massive conjunction here between Venus, just finished up its retrograde period, Saturn, the North Node, Mercury also just finishing up a retrograde, and Neptune. Okay, so this energy has been going on basically the entirety of eclipse season. And together, Venus, the planet of values, loves, relationships, your relationship to people, places, things, habits, your finances, all of that kind of energy. Saturn, the planet of discipline, rules, limitations, the physical world, structures, the North Node, which is our destiny, okay, the dharma of the collective, moving towards this more spacious, intuitive, Piscean depth kind of vibe. Mercury, the planet of transmission, communication, thinking, how we think about things, and then Neptune, which is intangibility and basically double whammies of Piscean energy. Okay, so together, all of these energies have been culminating to create an energy of valuing the receptive feminine energy. Feminine has nothing to do with gender. It is just a polarity, okay? In the law of three, we need a masculine doing contracted outward force, a feminine, expansive, intuitive, enveloping force, and then the blank space, okay? So this is just as a collective moving away from the old patriarchal, masculine-oriented structures into a more feminine, expansive, intuitive way of being. Saturn here is bringing this energy of seriousness, right? The values with Venus, and then really like how we're thinking and communicating with Mercury here, okay? So this is what we're doing in this little cluster right here. Now, also in Pisces, further along, the sun is right on top of Chiron, okay? Chiron is the wounded healer. It is basically the biggest wounds that we've had, right? So this is like a Kazemi, essentially, when the sun is conjunct anything. So the sun magnifies. The sun is going to illuminate your deepest wounds, okay? The sun is also your sense of identity, right? So healing your like ego, basically, and the old way of being, letting go of a need to be any sort of way and embracing who you actually are underneath, which is anything and everything in any given moment, okay? So the sun and Chiron conjunct are opposing the moon in Virgo, okay? So the moon is our emotional health. The moon is a luminary that affects us the most. I would say it impacts us to the greatest degree because it's the closest to us and it moves the fastest, right? It moves 13 degrees in the sky every single day. So it is moving and is cycling through the phases from the new moon where there's little energy as far as the magnetic pull. But at the full moon, it is at the apex of its illumination, and it is essentially acting as a magnet to pull things to the surface for us, okay? So the moon in Virgo is illuminating a lot of the shadow traits of this kind of energy. That's kind of the point, right? The full moon is like a check-in point from the lunar cycle, like the intentions that you set at the new moon. So thinking back to the new moon solar eclipse that we had a couple of weeks ago, if you want to go revisit the video that I made there and think about the themes from that, basically we were setting a new intention as far as this more spacious, heart-centered, intuitive way of being, with the energy of Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus basically supporting the expansion and shaking up, like innovation, freedom, and expansion in your physical world as a result of dropping the mental focus and leaning into the receptive trust and intuitive expansiveness of Pisces, okay? So the intentions that you set 2 weeks ago are now coming to a check-in point, right? So you're going to have challenges, and then when the moon is full, it pulls the challenges to the surface for you. The moon being full in Virgo is going to pull things to the surface as far as like perfectionism, analysis paralysis, overthinking, anxiety. Virgo is also the body as well. This is the sixth house, health, right? So it could be a preoccupation with your physical vessel, feeling like you need to purify yourself. Now, the full moon is a great time actually to purify yourself in the sense of doing a fast. Myself, I am doing another fast over the full moon this time. I think it's going to be something that I do moving forward. Although I say I think because I do everything intuitively. I do not hold myself to rigid structures. Because I, as a neurodivergent, autistic, but also ADHD human being, I need a little bit of structure, but too much structure makes me go crazy, right? So I have an idea of what I'm going to do, but then I'm always open to being flexible with it. So anywho, the point is that for the foreseeable future, as it intuitively feels best, I'm going to be fasting with the full moon because just like the moon pulls the tides, it pulls things to the surface in us. And this is emotional, energetic, but also physically, right? So like parasites and things like that come to life more so during the full moon. So fasting during that time and doing things to detox your body during that period of time, as long as you don't have any medical contraindications or, luckily my menstrual cycle is I bleed with the new moon. So it's not contraindicated to fast during the full moon for me. So anywho, the point is that it's not a bad thing to purify your body, but it can bring that shadow aspect to it, right? Of like hyper vigilance with your body, hypochondria, feeling like you need to really push yourself and exercise and organize and look a certain type of way. All of these are the shadow aspects of Virgo, which could be coming to the surface, or even just an over-reliance on the mind, because Virgo is a bit of an anomaly in the sense that it's an earth sign, but it is ruled by Mercury. Okay, and Mercury being right in the thick of this cluster over here in Pisces is not super comfortable, right? Like Mercury wants clarity, it wants control, it wants organization, it wants precision. Pisces is not that at all. It's like actually the antithesis of that because they're sister signs, okay? Virgo and Pisces are opposites, right? So where Virgo wants control, perfectionism, and precision, Pisces wants flexibility, intangibility, and faith, blind faith, essentially, right? Like Virgo wants to know, Pisces would rather not. Okay, so we've got this kind of push-pull going on between these opposing energies, and we need both of them in appropriate doses at the right time, and your discernment is what is necessary as far as when is necessary where, right? So the full moon being in this energy opposing the sun on top of Chiron is going to be like a big push-pull depending on your individual makeup and where you lean naturally. You're either going to want to go head over heels into the analysis paralysis and using your mind and trying to figure things out, needing to know what happens, or you might find yourself slipping into disembodiment and like escapism and addiction and wanting to just get lost in the sauce, right? And so it's depending on where you're at, feeling into that and like doing the opposite of what is comfortable, basically, because we're meant to be breaking free of the comfort zones. And this is another theme that's coming out with some of the other aspects in the chart happening for this lunar event, particularly this T-square. Okay, so with the opposition, so we've got the sun and Chiron opposing the moon, and then they're both making a square to Mars in, I almost said Gemini, Cancer. Mars freshly into Cancer, okay? Mars in Cancer is a little bit uncomfortable. They're both cardinal energies, right? But it's cardinal fire with Mars, which is Aries energy, and cardinal water, which is Cancer. So water and fire don't generally mix, right? So it's basically a perfect storm or perfect recipe for the perfect storm, okay? So there could be some emotional volatility, and this is a thing with full moons anyways, because it is a catalyst for us. It pulls things to the surface. It literally activates us intentionally to bring things to our awareness. But when you're not aware of the fact that this is happening and you're operating from the external locus of control, you can feel like you're under attack or that you need to defend yourself, okay? And with Mars in Cancer, there's a bit of emotional volatility potential here, okay? So be mindful of that within yourself, but also in others, because people who are not aware of this are going to think that everything outside of them is the problem, right? And so things could be a little bit spicy with this, because both the sun and the moon are in opposition here, they're in opposition to each other, but they're in a square. So a little tension all around between these three players, right? So we've got this like ego disillusion, like potential for massive ego deaths, tower moments, paradigm shifts, existential crisis with the sun right over top of Chiron in Pisces. But also like healing those identity wounds, right? Letting go of your identity to anything, your personality, like even your specific charts, right? And like the archetypes that come within that. This is why I don't want to be known as an astrologer, and I'm going to start teaching all the different systems just as confirmation, right? Not to form your identity around any of these sorts of archetypes, because you're everything and nothing all at once, right? So releasing the sun over Chiron in Pisces is the releasing of these identities, right? So we've got this going on, the wounds around all of that being touched on. And then we've got this kind of emotional reactivity. Mars in Cancer also is like sensitivity or protectiveness. So think about the crab, right, in its shell with those claws. Protectiveness around the home, children, your home life, the mother wound, like your personal private life, right? So you might be feeling a bit of emotional reactivity or protectiveness, fight or flight kind of tendencies around your home, your own needs, taking care of yourself, taking care of others kind of energy could be touched on within the realms of these energetics. And then the moon in Virgo is bringing this hyper awareness, potential for like self-criticism, like feeling down on yourself, beating yourself up, feeling like you're not good enough. That also is the sun on top of Chiron as well, like not being seen, wounds around not being seen, perfectionism, being unworthy, feeling like you're not good enough, that you need to be more pure, that you need to do more also, because with the Mars energy, that is that a doing energy. It's that assertion, how you do, how you be in the world kind of vibes, right? So like you could be feeling like you need to be doing more. Your mind could be spinning about what you need to do, but the answers are unclear because literally everything is in Pisces and everything is interacting with everything in Pisces. Okay, so it's really could be quite overwhelming, okay? There could be a huge potential for anxiety, like this kind of restless energy as well with all these aspects to Uranus as well, right? This kind of restless, I need to do something in the physical world, but not being sure of what you need to do. Right. So this is all going to be happening and potential to disturb you. Right. But remember that agitation is what is necessary in order for us to change. You don't necessarily need to take action. In fact, I wouldn't recommend taking action right now. I would recommend just chilling as much as you can, right? Somatic work would be really, really good I'll do the action items right at the end as well. But like the moon in Virgo is a great time to get out of the head and into the body, right? So like overriding the mind is not going to stop, but you can learn how to not pay attention to it by getting into your body via meditation, salt baths, grounding, steam, like hot, cold kind of stuff, ecstatic dance, all of these kind of things, yoga practices, touching your feet to the earth, all those sorts of things would be great during this period to ground yourself with all of this kind of uncertainty, restless mental chatter that is a huge potential with these aspects. Now, the other potential for this kind of like mental focus or really focus on the moon, as much as, I mean, it is a full moon, but like there's another aspect that's not shown on this chart, but it is, I'll probably draw it on when I do the edit actually, but there is a yod happening. Okay. So this is a quincunx between, so it's like 150-degree angle here between Uranus and all of this here, right? So all of these little blue lines are the quincunxes, okay? And then there would be a line going from here to here. I can't remember the angle number. Maybe I'll put it on the screen because I can't think of it right at the top of my head right now. But this is a yod, okay? So it's like a little triangle that would be going from here to here, and it's known as the finger of God, okay, the yod finger. And whatever planet is at the apex of that is the focal point, that is the catalyst to change, okay? And it happens to be the moon when it's full, opposing at the sun and Chiron, okay? So we've got the moon again. I've already gone into the depths of this energy as far as the moon in Virgo, but basically, to sum that up, the moon wants to control. The moon wants to control your emotional health and your emotional experience in this position, okay? Uranus in Taurus wants to disrupt your stability in Taurus, okay? So the Uranus is the disruptor. Taurus is your physical world, your resources, slow and steady kind of progress, right? So a disruption to your comfort zone, a disruption, innovation as far as your physical world is concerned, what you've always done, the habits that you have, the neural pathways that have been formed and you've been traveling for decades kind of vibe. Uranus wants to shake that shit up here, okay? And then this stellium like cluster in Pisces here basically wants to dissolve all boundaries between yourself and everything else, right? It wants to like dunk your head in the water and make it so you can't think straight kind of vibe, right? This can be really overwhelming to the nervous system because the nervous system wants control. The nervous system and the brain control or, survey the physical environment, right? They want to know what's going on because uncertainty leads to death. Okay, so all of this energy in Pisces is like, stop using your head and get into your heart. Doesn't matter what happens, right? But there's this push-pull between your etheric body and like the spiritual aspect of you as a human being and your physical body, which needs to stay safe, right? And all of the systems and institutions that we've been living under, and the society that we're living in general, where we're being poisoned and fear-mongered, right? Like all of these things lead to an independence or a dependence, I should say, of the mind, right? Like because we're all afraid and we're poisoned and we're vibrating at a frequency that is fear and scarcity kind of energy, right? Illusion of separation isn't reinforced by the mind and the five senses and the nervous system, right? Because it needs that in order to keep the physical vessel safe, right? So we've got all of these energies and all of the old systems, right? Like there's an opposition here as well that's been going on with Pluto and Capricorn, dismantling these old patriarchal systems that are looking outside of ourselves, maintaining the illusion of separation, the hustle, grind, work hard, physical, material kind of energies, opposing this like new way of thinking and being with Mars in Cancer, right? So like, we've got this push-pull between like maintaining your safety in the physical world and then leaning into trust that no matter what happens, you're fine. Everything that happens in the physical world is just an experience, and ultimately you are the source, the creator. You're a spiritual being. Your physical vessel is just like part of the game, okay? So like you don't really need to be that afraid of anything that happens in your experience. You can surrender to it, and like when you die, you just start over again anyways, right? So like game over, like whoops, mess that one up, let's do it again kind of vibe, right? So we've got this push-pull between like wanting to stay in the game and maintaining your physical safety and wanting to be able to release yourself from the physical vessel to the point where you can actually control it better. Because when you're stuck in the illusion of separation, operating as just a physical material creature, you can't see what lies beyond the physical, what you can see and touch and feel, and be able to act more as like the puppet master of your physical vessel, or like the player of the video game, rather than just the character in the game kind of idea, right? So like this basically is the energy of the yod that we've got here going on right now. So essentially, the moon in this position must learn to integrate the chaos of the awakening. Okay, this is spiritual awakening in a nutshell right here. All of this stuff in Pisces, right? It's whether you like it or not. Okay, right? Like, it's happening based on the frequencies that are coming to be. And those of you who are tuning into these sorts of broadcasts are obviously a few steps into the game, right? And like, we're meant to be the way makers, the change makers, the showers of the way to those who are just waking up, because as these energies continue to hit the collective, people are going to wake up and not know what to do because they're like, oh, they have this like earth-shattering spiritual awakening, and then their whole paradigm is shattered, and it can create chaos, right? So like, those of us who have been in this for some time are becoming used to the chaos of awakening, and we're beginning to form structures in order to help others save some time in that process. Okay, so like, if you're listening to this, you're probably one of those people, right? And so you have to go through that first yourself in order to show others by your being and the systems that you create, the structures that you create, in order to make this process easier for the rest of the collective. And then it's like a snowball effect, right? We're like moving in an expansive period into a more awakened, enlightened society where humans are magical and living as magical beings, both in the physical realm and the spiritual. So the moon in this, there's a lot of pressure on the moon with this full moon, right? To like integrate this chaos of the awakening and mitigating the desire to control, fix, and micromanage that, right? It's like basically learning to sit in the middle, because you need both, right? It's not just the the intangible Piscean energy that play here, but we also do have that Virgo energy, and this is how we bring things into the physical world, is by reaching into the ethers and the collective unconscious and that which lies beyond in the heart space and the higher chakras, right? We reach into those higher realms by when we're sitting in neutral, and then we can pull things into the physical world. And this is basically what is happening with all of these energies. So the key with this is to surrender, trust, and reorganize your belief systems and your need to control, essentially, right? Like, release the need to control and enact your ability to control when it is appropriate. Okay, so now the heavy stuff is out of the way. We do have some like favorable stuff going on, right? Like, all of these blue lines are harmonious aspects. So we have a lot of support from Pluto, again, dismantling these old systems that are limiting us as far as the hustle and grind and mental material focus. Supporting all of this intangibility here in Pisces as well. A lot of supportive energy coming from this cluster in Pisces, going towards Mars, in as far as like a new emotional way of being in the world. Understanding that you can decide how you feel. You don't need to let your circumstances dictate how you feel. You are the decider. You set the tone. Some harmonious aspects to Jupiter as well. A little bit of tension between Jupiter and here. If you didn't see my recent video as far as Jupiter getting hit with solar storms, I would check that out. It's just on TikTok as well. Or you can look at Stefan Burns on YouTube as well. He did a whole deep dive into this energy of the most benefic planet. So like, Jupiter's expansion is good luck, right? Its abundance has been basically supercharged by these coronal mass ejections from the sun. So it is basically even more powerful than usual. So the aspects here are going to help to illuminate and expand all of these energies as well. Basically, we are living in really interesting times, okay? And like, we're blessed to be here. Like, there's so many souls that are wanting to be in human bodies at this time to have the experience of this massive change that is going on. So as far as what to do with these energies, I would say, as far as actionable items, to really look at where you're feeling like you need to control things and how can you let that go a little bit more. Like, what are you hanging on to? What identity are you hanging on to? What way of being perceived are you hanging on to? And how can you loosen that? Where can you lean into trust a little bit more than control, okay? And if you're not sure, just think about what creates tension in your being. What do you feel like needs to be a certain type of way? What do you feel like isn't okay the way that it is right now? Those are the things that you need to trust and lean into surrender about. I already mentioned somatic work, but I'm going to highlight it again here. Really getting out of the mind and into the body is going to help you in so many ways as a regular practice, but especially with these energies, the chaotic energies and the mental energies going on with this full moon in particular. There's also a potential for like spiritual psychosis kind of vibes with all of this Piscean energy opposing the moon and Chiron and all of that as well. So remember, your spiritual awakening, although chaotic, is not meant to be scary. If you're afraid of anything, that is a sign that you're slipping into a psychotic or psychosis, spiritual psychosis sort of state. A lot of new age stuff, or, like it can be, because it's paradigm shattering and you're releasing the mind's need to control and you're leaning into things that you haven't experienced before. There's a lot of information out there that can be really scary. I mean, there is this whole like light and dark battle, like evil forces. And like when you look at things, like there is this stuff going on, okay? It's the polarity of the experience. Like for every person that is a light warrior and trying to exist in a heart-centered way, there's somebody who's anchoring the opposite polarity into oh my god, anchoring the opposite polarity into being, okay? And especially when you start looking at the structures and the inverted truths and the false timelines and all of this kind of stuff as far as the control mechanisms keeping humanity in the lower three chakras, it can be a little bit scary at the beginning, right? But like, remember, it's all part of the game, okay? If you're a light worker, if you're somebody who's still listening to this transmission right now, you've played both sides, okay? You've been on the dark side, maybe just as much as the light. I know I've been on the dark side more than I've been on the light. It's new for me to be on the light side, okay? So you've been in those shoes. That means that there's nothing to be afraid of, right? And remember that even fear, as far as spiritual concepts, is contracting you, okay? It's limiting your ability to receive in that way. So don't fear anything. That I needed to say that, okay? So somatic work and getting out of the head and into the body helps to keep you in a neutral state so that you can mitigate any sort of fear that comes up. Fear comes from the mind also, okay? Fear is a product of the brain because it's trying to keep your body safe. When you're operating from your heart space and the more neutral way of being, you're not afraid of anything because you don't really care what happens to your body in the long run, okay? You still try to protect it. Like, I'm not on like a suicidal kind of mission at this point. I don't want to be tortured or have pain in my physical vessel. I'm going to try to avoid that if I can, but if I can't, then it's going to happen. Like, that's kind of where you want to be sitting with this, okay? So somatic work, if you're not familiar with this, reach out to me if you'd like to work with me one-on-one. I have a lot of experience with this, but you can do it easily by breathing, touching the earth, getting in some water. If you can't get in natural water, have a salt bath, steam room, sauna, yoga, ecstatic dance, anything that gets you out of your head and into your body and allows your body to express the trapped emotions in your causal body, the aura of your solar plexus, essentially, okay? So somatic work, highly, highly recommend. So you can feel safe, okay? When you're out of the head and in the body, you can feel safe. The other thing I wrote down here is, where are you caging a wound instead of healing it? So this with the sun on Chiron is going to illuminate your wounds. And a story came to mind. A friend of mine does storytelling. Myth and folklore is her magic. And she tells the story of like this, I can't remember, I think it's a lion or a princess. The details, I have a hard time with the details. But the essence of the story is like, there was this being with a thorn in its arm, and instead of taking the thorn out, it built a cage around it, right? And this cage was so annoying, but they lived with this cage for forever because they didn't want to just pull the thorn out, right? But if they just pulled eat the frog, pull the thorn out, it sucks when you do it, but then you're free. You don't have to have a freaking cage on your arm kind of idea, right? So like, where are you caging a wound? Where are you protecting a thorn instead of just pulling that freaking thorn out? And how can you be a little bit messier? Where are you being too controlling? Where are you being too perfect? How can you embrace the magic of your mess? How can you embrace the totality of your experience and start putting things out that are B+ work, right? Like this analysis paralysis, this need for things to be perfect and pristine, all of that is coming to an end. There's nobody to impress or nobody to be afraid of because everybody is you, okay? So that's all I got for you as far as this goes. Very exciting times, folks. I am stoked for this. Like I said, I am planning on doing a fast, and since it's on the weekend, I'm probably going to be doing a bit of ritual magic as well, moving forward with your plans. Remember, this is the the check-in point, right? So looking at what the intentions you set 2 weeks ago, where you're at with those, and what do you need to do to move forward with those would be the intentions. So if you like this sort of content, I would love it if you engage with this video in every way that you can. Leave me a comment, drop me a comment, let me know how you're feeling, what you're going to be doing with this energy, and I will see you in the next one.